presenting geography. Yeah, I'm taking you through geography paper 1, that is 312/1. Then on map work, I want to take some time and take you through the various requirements for map work, because it is a compulsory question in section B, which students can easily score all the 25 marks since they are provided with a map. Theirs is just to read and interpret it and then write down the answers. But this is not obvious. Sometimes the candidates experience challenges. Now, map work can be divided into three areas. One is the short questions of 1 to 2 marks. Examples of these are calculation of direction and bearing. Here, I will emphasize that the candidates give bearing in 3 digits, even where the bearing is less than 100 degrees, like maybe 50 degrees. Introduce a 0 on the left side of the 5, so that you have 0, 5, 0 degrees to have the 3 digits. Don't write in 3 digits. The other one is determining grid references. Here, use the secondary scale of the linear scale to get that figure, because this way your answer will be accurate. Don't use the ruler because the ruler may have errors in the units or in the calibration. Get a piece of paper, take it to the linear scale where we have the secondary scale, and then mark out those portions of the secondary scale, and then now transfer that to the map and measure to get the 3rd digit so that your answer is accurate. Location of places or features. This requires you to study the map clearly and be able to show where various features are found. You can use either grid references, you can use direction and bearing, you can use place names to locate features and places. Calculation of area is another question in the short questions of map work. Here, use the grid square method unless otherwise instructed. This requires you to undertake 3 steps, because I've witnessed students going ahead and start undertaking a lot of mathematical calculations which are not necessary. Just count the number of complete squares, write it down, count the number of incomplete squares, divide the answer by 2, then add the number of complete squares plus the number of incomplete squares, and that will give you the area. And remember to indicate the units. Measurement of distance. Here, I will encourage you to use a straight edge of a paper, as use of a string or a thread may easily cause errors. Sometimes students wonder, now that both the question paper and the answer booklet is combined into one, where do they get a straight edge of paper? If you look at the question paper, you will realize that the last page is usually blank. You can tear a small piece of paper from that last page and use it to help you measure distances with ease. NB. You must have a ruler and a geometrical set with all the instruments when you go to the examination room, because these instruments will help you undertake measurements. Margin of error, for instance, for distance is 0.1 kilometers. So that requires you to be very accurate. Then for area, it is 0.5 kilometer square. For bearing, it is plus or minus 1 degree. So this tells us that accuracy is very important in these measurements. That's why you need to carry the geometrical sets and use them well to get accurate answers. The second part in map work is what I've termed as written work. This includes description of relief. Just like in description in the other questions, this requires you to give an idea of the physical appearance of the landscape as brought out by the landforms. This includes slopes, hills, mountains, valleys, lowlands, and other relief features. Remember, forests, buildings, these are not relief features. Relief is the actual appearance of the Earth's surface, not the buildings and other human activities that are carried out on the Earth's surface. What the candidates should bear in mind is that they are supposed to describe the layout of the landforms in that area covered by the map. In doing so, they require to understand contours, conventional signs which are found in the key, symbols, and names of landforms in the area. Important aspects of contours to bear in mind are the pattern of contours. So look at how the contours are shaped. Are they curved? If they are curved, they represent rugged relief. Where they are straight, they represent even relief. Spacing of contours, close contours in an area of the map indicate a steep slope, while space contours represent gentle slope. Height of the contours, it indicates the highest. This helps you to get the highest and the lowest points, which helps determine the direction of the slope of the land. How to describe relief? Because this many times gives candidates a challenge. These are the steps to follow. First, identify the main relief features in the area, such as hills, valleys, plains, and plateaus. And don't generalize, indicate where they are found. For instance, you could say the southwestern part has many hills, such as Obiero Hill. Where there are valleys, maybe you can say the northern part has many valleys which have formed rivers. Identify the lowest and highest points in the area covered by the map. The contour lines, trigonometrical stations, and spot heights can help you to identify the highest points. Swamps, lakes, oceans, seas, and depressions help in locating the lowest points. For instance, using the Imo map, the western part, actually half of the map, from the central part towards the west, is covered by Lake Victoria or Namlolwe. These can guide you in getting the lowest part of the area covered by the map, because alongside the lake, the shores of the lake, there is a contour line which has a valley. There are also in the northern part swamps. Compare the heights of the contours around the swamps and the lake to get which one has the lower values, and these will guide you in identifying the lowest part. Then describe the general appearance of the area. For example, mountainous relief. This is shown by contours of 2,000 meters and above. The area is gently sloping. This is shown by contours of below 1,800 meters or dissected. The landscape is shown by many river valleys. Describe the shape or the pattern and characteristics of relief features. For instance, broad or narrow valleys, extensive bridges, large basins, hills are gentle or hills are steep. Describe the distribution of the features. For instance, the eastern part has many hills. The western part has many valleys. Then you should also remember to describe the general trend of the relief. For example, the land rises from the southwest to northwest. This will be guided by you having identified the highest point and the lowest point. This will tell you how the land rises from which direction to which one. In description of drainage, this is the movement or discharge of water by natural and man-made features on the Earth's surface. Emphasis is laid on the fact that we are interested in the surface water features, not underground water. Identify the drainage features in the area. For instance, you can say the area covered by the map is drained by rivers, lakes, and ponds. Then describe the distribution of the water bodies. For instance, there are many rivers on the eastern part, while the northern part has a few rivers. Describe the characteristics of water bodies. For example, many rivers in the south are perennial, permanent, and you give examples. Seasonal rivers, you may say, in the northern part, there are numerous seasonal rivers. For instance, we can also talk about vanishing rivers. And I want to use some examples from the Yimbo map. The Yimbo map has numerous vanishing rivers. For example, River Opondo is a vanishing river, so cite specific examples. Then we also describe characteristics of the water bodies. For example, many rivers in the south are valleys. Describe the layout of the rivers, that is the drainage pattern. You can single out the main river in the area, like in the Yimbo map. The main river is Yala. You can look at the way streams join River Yala. This one has streams that join it at less than 90 degrees. So that is the infiltrated drainage pattern. Although we have some that are joining the river at more or less than 90 degrees. So you can say River Yala and its streams form a tricky and trellis pattern. The layout just goes once, so don't single out other rivers, many rivers, and repeat from the drainage pattern because it goes once. Remember, dams are walls. The water body is reducible or the man-made lake and the dam. So that is the one we should refer to the drainage feature. Boreholes are not drainage features since they are not surface water bodies. Here, you refer to waterfalls, not boreholes. Waterfalls and bodies also are not drainage features since water is not flowing in them separately. They just occur along the river course. So you can talk of them just as features occurring along the channel. For instance, you can say River Sagana is flowing in a steep area with waterfalls and gorges along its course. So don't. Okay. Thank you for that observation. Thank you for your concerns. You can talk of these features, that is the waterfalls and gorges, are just features that occur along a river course. Like I've said, that River Sagana is flowing in a steep area with waterfalls and gorges. The description of vegetation is another area where vegetation refers to the plant cover in an area, both natural and planted. Use symbols in the key to identify the ground cover. For example, forest. Don't just assume that the presence of the green shading in the map represents a forest. If you go to the conventional symbols, there are specific symbols inside the green color which show whether it is a forest or it is a thicket or a woodland or a scrub. So I use these symbols to identify the vegetation cover in the area. Then when we are describing vegetation, account for the distribution of vegetation. For instance, tell where the vegetation type is found in a given part of the area, and also try to relate the vegetation with climate, with the drainage, and human settlement. Use correct terms. For example, don't use papyrus swamp, which is a drainage feature, but instead use papyrus plants or papyrus reeds. Then give location of a particular vegetation type on the area. And remember, crops such as maize, beans, coffee, tea are not part of vegetation. So even if they appear in the area covered by the map, these are not part of vegetation. The other term in this part of written questions is land use. This is the utilization of land in the area covered by the map. So I shout. Maybe I try to shout. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that observation. Land use. This is a utilization of land in the area covered by the map. That is occupational activities that people engage in for profit. Examples, you can say the main land use activity in the area is crop growing. These will be informed by the presence of crop symbols. For instance, crop processing factories can have tea factories, coffee factories in the area. This will suggest that either in the whole area covered by the map or a part of it, there is crop growing. The other activity could be land use, could be animal keeping. This will be evidenced by the presence of cattle dips, veterinary offices, and water tanks. Settlement, which is also a land use activity. These will be indicated by dwellings, both rural and urban. Land uses are mainly economic activities that are done for income or profit making. Functions of towns, these are both social and economic activities that are carried out in towns in the map area. Use correct terms. For instance, medical health care, not treating. Evidence for this would be hospitals, dispensaries, or health centers. Trade or commercial services. This is evidenced by the presence of markets, shops. Then educational services is evidenced by the presence of schools, colleges. Then religious service is not religion. You talk of religious services, which is evidenced by the presence of churches. Usually they are abbreviated with CH, or mosques. Transport services is evidenced by the presence of roads of various types. Communication, evidenced by maybe the presence of a post office. Note that transport services and communication are different. So don't talk of transport and talk of it separately and it is evident. The presence of a prison, this indicates the administration services. Then settlement. These refer to the distribution of human dwellings in the area covered by the map. Settlements are two categories. We have the urban settlements that are by dark shaded blocks, while rural settlements are shown by dark shaded circles. Describe the settlement density in the area. For example, is it sparse? Is it dense? Is it moderate? Then, while you are describing settlement, remember also to mention the patterns, the settlement patterns, where we have nucleated or clustered settlement patterns, linear, where dwellings occur alone. There are certain features like roads, edges of forests, along rivers, or dispersal, where the settlements are far apart. Account for the distribution of settlements. Give reasons for the settlement density in various parts. Relate this with the factors that influence the settlement distribution: availability of water, defense, transport and communication, relief of the land, soils. This will guide you in accounting for the distribution of settlement. Never interchange settlement with population, as population is not shown on the map. Then the third part in map work is drawing of sketches. Here, this involves reduction and enlargement. When we are doing reduction and enlargement, first of all, identify the area to be sketched on the map. Then remember that the sketch should be oriented in the same way it appears on the map. For example, horizontally rectangular or vertically rectangular. Wrong orientation earns no marks. It attracts a zero straight or an inverted V and a zero. Then place features in their correct positions and the approximate shape. Label features from inside or use a key or arrows to show the features. Then features should be clearly sketched but not fine art work. It is advisable to give the sketch the title or caption. Then the second sketch is cross-section, which is a diagrammatic representation of the variation of the land between two identified points along a straight line. Here, areas that need to be emphasized are, remember to give the cross-section a comprehensive title. Correct starting point, ensure that you get the starting point clearly. Correct end point of the curve, and then the correct leveling of the vertical axis and its height, units of the height indicated if there are meters, if there are feet, indicate them clearly. Correct trend of the curve, correct labeling of features. Take note of contour lines that are near the starting or the end point if the line does not start or end at a distinct contour. This will help you in placing it near the most likely place. Like in the 2015, the end point was occurring between two contours. So the candidates were supposed to place it at the middle of the two contours, not at any of the two nearby contours, because that was wrong. Then for features covering a bigger section in the cross-section, use brackets and then arrows. And the arrows showing the features should be labeled from above to show that the features are on the earth surface and not below. Let me now take some time to give the candidates some guiding points on tackling the examination. Before you start answering questions, pay special attention to the rubric of the paper. Rubric here refers to the set of specific instructions that are contained in the whole question paper, from the cover page and even to that is inside, where we have instructions for every question. Ensure that you make a correct choice of the optional questions, which you can confidently answer. You can use the first 15 minutes of the exam time to make your choices. As you do this, advise the candidates to draft key points for their answers on the question paper before answering the question. When you are going through with answering, check the key points, find out whether you have addressed them, that in case you have left out any part, you can go back and address the area that had been left untackled. Number your answers correctly according to the way they appear in the question paper, that you ensure each answer is numbered according to the corresponding question. After answering each question, read the question and your answer once more before attempting the next question to ensure that no part of the question is left unanswered. And then when you're answering questions, be specific in your answers and avoid generalized answers. For instance, saying the area is gently sloping. These may apply to just one part of the area covered by the map and not the whole area. Answer should be straightforward. Avoid beating about the bush or verbosity. It's too many words. Just go straight to the point. Also avoid negative answers like identify vegetation types on the area covered by the map. It is wrong to say there is no forest vegetation. Give what is there rather than what is not there. When asked to use diagrams, make sure your diagrams are neatly drawn and labeled, because unlabeled diagrams don't focus, they don't speak, they don't show what they are representing. Make sure your answers are relevant to the same questions, do not set your own question. Look at the marks given each question, which will guide you in deciding how much you should try to improve your answers. For instance, if a question contains 4 marks, don't give less than 4 points in your answer, because that guides you in the number of points you are supposed to give. So at this point, I want to give an example of the mapwork questions using the new map, which was used in last year 2019 as question number 6. I want to take the candidates through question 6 so that we can see what was expected of the candidates. So like we have said, the first questions are short, which are 1 to 2 marks. So that is question A, B, Roman 1 to Roman 3, question A, and B, Roman 1 and Roman 2. Question 6A, Roman 1. What is the magnetic variation of the map? 2 marks. So the candidates here were supposed to go to the conventional symbols, where we have the symbol showing the relationship between the various types of node, the grid node, the true node, and the magnetic node. Now, magnetic variation is the difference in degrees between the true node and the magnetic node. So, this was straightforward from the conventional symbols. It is clearly 2 degrees and 28 minutes. The second one, identify 2 natural features found at the grid square 3597. These, although it appears to be very simple, it requires the candidates to interpret the map very well and locate these grid square, because if they locate the wrong grid square, they will be the wrong features. And remember, it is natural features, not human features. So first of all, when you are identifying a grid square, you start with the easting 35, and you look at the large figures, not the small figures, because the small figures show the grid series. So easting 35, easting 85, and then you go to northing 97. Easting 35. So the easting is the one that comes before the square, and the northing is the one that comes below the square, because at the point of intersection, that is the square that you give. So for those who are able to access the Yibo map, we can see that in this area, the main natural feature here is River Yala. Don't just say river. It is River Yala. The other natural feature is scrub vegetation. Scrub vegetation. Yes, scrub vegetation. The third one, identify 2 countries represented in the area covered by the map. So this one requires the candidates to go to the symbol that shows administrative divisions. That is on the southeastern part of the area covered by the map. Within this symbol of the administrative divisions, we can see that we have B is Uganda and A is Western Province. So that is in Busia District, Kenya. So you can now clearly say that the countries represented in the area covered by the map are Kenya and Uganda. Give the direction of the trigonometric station at grid square 2789 from the airport of principal point at Nyangoma Mission School. This requires you to have a geometrical set, which I emphasized earlier when we are going to the examination room, because to answer such a question, you need to have the compass, you need to have a ruler, and a pencil. So to do this question, you first of all identify the points, that is the trigonometric station at the given grid square, and then the airport of principal point. Once you identify these, then draw a light pencil line joining the 2 points, and then go to the reference point. The reference point is the one that comes after the word from. That means this is the airport of principal point. That is where you go and draw the north-south line, which should be parallel to the eastings. And then you measure once you do that, You then now identify the direction from that point, which will be guided by the compass that you have drawn. Measure the length of the provincial boundaries to the northwest of the area covered by the map. Here, my advice, like I've said earlier, don't use a string or a piece of thread. This we have said can cause errors. Just a piece of paper, especially from the last page, which is usually which has a lot of space because it is not printed, and then apply this on the boundary, the area that you are measuring. One thing I want to emphasize here, when you are rotating the paper at areas where there are curves, ensure that you pin the paper in place as you turn it around the curves. You can use the dividers to pin the paper in place to ensure it doesn't slide and cause errors. Then from question C, now these are the questions that require description. Give evidence that show the area covered by the map received low rainfall. This requires you now to study the map, and in giving the evidence, here you can be guided by the land use activities that people undertake, and also the vegetation growing in the area. These will give clear indicators. And one indicator is not enough to enable you to make a conclusion. Combine several indicators. Then part 2, explain how each of the following factors have influenced the distribution of settlements in the area covered by the map: transport, vegetation, and relief. So these ones require the candidates to interpret the map, look at the roads, the major roads, and find out, are there settlements that are near roads, like the all-weather road, have the all-weather road, bound surface, all-weather road, loose surface. If we could single out the all-weather road, loose surface, C506, and see whether we have any settlements that have been established along that road or near the road. It is evident that we have many settlements that have been established near the road. That means people have settled near roads for ease of transport of both goods and people. Then vegetation. Clearly the areas that are I'm using it as an example. You as advocate to this. Everybody has this. I think from my place, I don't know because are there conflicts? Although there are many more big, they cannot be able to. Camera, is it seeing the map? No, it's not seeing. Oh, it's not. That's the other problem. Yeah, so I was just using the Yimbo map just to give some highlights on how you should tackle questions on map work. Although I'm reliably informed that not all the students have the map, but at least I've identified the key areas and answered some of the questions. So I believe the teachers will guide you further on this. So I want to pause at this point and